Today I'm going to do a channel which is kind of just a novelty. It's not earth-shattering about how to live in a more awakened way. It's just kind of playing with the flexibility of life and understanding that the barriers between life and death aren't as permanent or impermeable. That's probably a better word. They aren't as impermeable as we have thought they are. So, the channel I'm going to do today, the topic is, can we channel the deceased? Can we channel the deceased? I've done this once before, just when I still hadn't been channeling for very long, although I haven't been channeling for very long. I've only been channeling for about 4 months in total. I channeled for like 5 weeks before I started recording, and then I've been recording since then. So I think in total I've done like maybe 90 channels or something like that, probably in total, and I think I've recorded like maybe 65 or more of those. And one of the channels I did, although I did record this one in the early days, was channeling my father, who passed away when I was 33 and I'm 50 now, so that was 17 years ago, 18 years ago. So when I did it, it was really, I started crying. I broke down into tears. I didn't gradually sort of break down into tears, but just something that my dad said when we were channeling. And it wasn't just what he said, but I could feel what he was, the emotional quality that he was holding when he was saying what he was saying. I could feel that because it's channeling through me. And he held an emotional quality regarding something which really broke me up in a good way. It was cathartic. It was really nice. So I've had the experience where I have been able to channel the deceased, and my brother saw this channel as well, my older brother, and he was in tears as well. So, how's that done? Is it possible? So I'm going to just do a channel on that today, just for the interests of other people, and see if this is just something, maybe it's a bit of a curiosity. You probably didn't need to see me drink that water. Anyway, that's part of the show now. So, can we channel the deceased? So, let's see what we got. Greetings and thank you for the question. Can you channel the deceased? Let us start by qualifying this word deceased. Of course, life is eternal. The true essence of who you are is immortal. So it continues on even after the so-called death from the human plane. And it would be more accurate to say that it is at the time of your death and return to full awareness of your highest self state, your energetic, the true essence of who you are, the infinite, immortal, invulnerable individuation of the One, that you are most alive. And it is when you are having the temporary physical life that you are most unalive. So the paradox is, you are more dead when you are alive, and you are more alive when you are dead. So those that have left your experience through death are still living. They are still alive. However, the personality that they had is a temporary construct. It's a construct of the mind. Imbued into the equality, imbued into the personality, is the highest self quality, is a vibratory characteristic which is imbued into the personality. So each person in your life, although they are the temporary vehicle that you see before you, the mind, the body, the personality, they appear to be this. This is not them. They are the higher self, the energetic, the individuation of the one. And for the purpose of integrating into physicality, so they can have the physical experience, they dream or they manifest these assets, this temporary vehicle, the conduit, so they can further their purpose, which is the divine purpose, which is to know thyself in the physical experience, to become the higher self realized in the physical experience, which is, by proxy, the one realized in the physical experience, because this is the divine purpose. The one wishes to know itself experientially, because prior to the existence there was the one existing only as a concept, and as a concept it had no experience of itself because there was no differentiation. There was no one thing that was not another thing, so there was no contrast. Yearning to know itself experientially, it created the illusion of infinite individuations of itself. So now there was one thing that was not another thing. In perception only, of course, because it is illusory. The ultimate truth is, it is all one thing. So, this physical representation of the self is not the true self. It is just temporary. And through the development of the personality, through experiences, there is a breakaway from authenticity. There is a movement towards identification with this vehicle. And identification with this vehicle is a movement away from authenticity. So the personality of the person that you knew is not who they truly are. It is not them. However, embedded in this personality, imbued in the personality, is a vibratory quality or characteristic of their true essence. So in a sense, you are familiar with their true essence because it is part of the personality that you knew. However, when they have transitioned from physicality back into full awareness of their higher self, the personality is relinquished and they are no longer mum or dad or buddy, but instead the energetic which existed before the life, before you had the experience of them. But contained within them now, within the information field, which they are in the Akashic records, is the personality imprint, is the collection of all the experiences that they had during their lifetime, all of the thoughts they had during their lifetime. All of this now is contained within the information field. And this information field is available to them, and so even though they are no longer this personality you knew them as, they still have access to that. And so if you were to have a contact with them, then they can still identify through that personality through that temporary character they played on the stage of physicality. So the most simple answer to this question of communicating with the deceased is yes. Yes, it is possible, because they are not deceased. They continue to exist, and although they exist not as the character you knew them, they still have access to that aspect of themselves, that information they carry of the life they lived through the Akashic records in the information field. They can still be that personality. And so if you're able to make contact with them, you can still have the contact with them as that character. However, invariably what you will find is when you have the contact with the deceased, that they have a quality of wakefulness, a quality of wisdom and authentic truth that they perhaps didn't have during the lifetime in which you knew them. And this is because there is no mind stuff. They no longer have the mind, and the mind is no longer placing layers of belief over their authenticity. You are download streaming yourself into the body in real time. You are literally channeling yourself from the higher self state. And the way that it has been designed, when you have reached a level of mastery, is that you have no belief structures which are a false conceptualization of self, creating a distortion of this download feed. And so you're able to emanate as presence into the moment authentically, purely as the higher self energetic. Now, of course, this is the state of an awakened master. It's an uncommon state. For most humans, the experience is that they download themselves for real-time streaming, but instead of emanating into the moment spontaneously as presence, the feed is rerouted to the mind, and then through the mind there is curation. Because of past hurts, because of past experiences, because the ego is afraid of its own vulnerability, it places layers of protection, layers of personality manipulation, so that it can't be harmed in the way that it's been harmed in the past, and authenticity is lost. And so the being that you are in your presence is not authentically you. And the more of this mind stuff, the more of this ego stuff that you hold, the more layers of false belief and misconceptualization of self that your real-time download streaming must pass through in the process of curation before you allow it to emanate into the moment as your presence, then the less authentic you are. However, this is not the case for those that are deceased. They have relinquished the mind, and by relinquishing the mind, they have relinquished the beliefs of the mind, these erroneous conceptualizations of self. And so there is no process within them where the emanation of self is rerouted through the intellect for curation. And so when you communicate with them, you will find that they have a level of authenticity that they didn't possess before, a propensity for truthfulness which they didn't possess before, and truthfulness in a way which is succinct and insightful. And if you have the opportunity to communicate, they will say things which you have never heard them say before. They'll express in a way you've never heard them before, and they will communicate to you feelings about the things that they did in the past, or the way they felt about you, that you never heard them say before, because they have a level of insight they didn't possess when you knew them in the living state. So as humanity continues to evolve from the 3D into the 5D reality, there is going to be an increasing density of the energetic in the physical experience. So, as a 3D being, your physicality is dense, and because your physicality is dense, it is more opaque to the flow of the higher self, and so you are less authentic compared to what humanity will become as it progresses into the fifth dimensional state. Your higher self is an energetic, and those that you loved or those that you knew that have now deceased have returned to their awareness that they are this energetic, that they are this fifth dimensional being, the individuation of the love of the One. They never discontinued being that, but when they were having the physical experience, this small part of their consciousness that was living that life did not have awareness of this higher self state. Not in the way that they do now, when they have relinquished the body, and so their awareness, their consciousness, is focused in this fifth dimensional state. As humanity ascends into a fifth dimensional reality, there is going to be an opening up of potential. What has occurred now is this transition is impending because the purpose of life is to realize the self as the energetic, which is the process of the One realizing itself in the physical experience. The One yearns to know itself experientially. And so, for this to occur, it is the realization of itself. It is the waking up from the forgetfulness. It is remembering, it is realizing, it is expanding into the awareness that it is the love. And you, as an individuation of the One, you are the One. Your purpose is the same purpose, to know thyself, because you are the One. So the One's purpose is your purpose. So your purpose is to know thyself, is to expand into greater realization that you are the One, that you are this infinite love. The third dimension has a limitation, and so the degree to which this realization can occur has mostly been utilized. Humanity has reached a level of self-awareness, of awakening, of becoming more of the energetic in the physical experience that is possible in this dimensional state. And so, for humanity to have a greater realization of its infinity, it must have more access to infinity. It must have more access to a potential field in which to expand into, in this ever-increasing realization of self, this ever-increasing awareness that each of us is the One. All beings, across all existence, is going through this process of realizing that they are the one. And so this transition into the fifth dimensional state, which is impending, which is on the horizon for humanity, will open up a new field of potential in front of the humanity being. And then there will be the process of transitioning through the fifth dimension, expanding and expanding, increasing in awareness, and becoming more realized of the higher self energetic in the physical experience, becoming more realized that you are in fact the one. You are the infinite being, the one thing, having a physical experience. This is the realization process. And as this transition continues, there will be a decreasing in the density of physicality. Compared to humans that lived thousands of years ago, you would appear to be angelic, glowing, because as humanity has transitioned through this potentiation of the third dimension, there has been a decrease in the density of physicality, an increase in the energetic state. The balance has been changing because there is this process of awakening and realizing that you are the infinite energetic individuation of the love of the one, that you are the highest self. You are not the physical being. This is the process of awakening. And as this realization becomes increasingly so, then you become more of this energetic in the physical experience, and you become less of this temporary vehicle, this illusory physicality. So as humanity transitions through the potentiation, increasing potentiation of the fifth dimension after the ascension, there will be this continuing reduction in density of the physicality and increasing energetic quality while in the physical experience. And so in a sense, what will occur is this veil, this barrier, which separates the physical from the non-physical, or which separates the living, meaning the you in the living human field, from the afterlife. This field, this barrier between them, is going to become less, because what is occurring is the afterlife. So those that you know that are now deceased and that have returned to this energetic state where they await their choice to incarnate again. And when they incarnate, they remain in this energetic field as a higher self, and part of their consciousness will be incarnated into another human life. And so in this afterlife field where they are the higher self, they are no longer dreaming this illusory life, but they are fully aware and their consciousness is fully focused in this identification of self. So they're the pure energetic. And what is happening is, as humanity is transitioning through the third dimension and then transitioning through the fifth dimension, when we say transition, we don't mean transition in a geographical sense, that they're slowly travelling through like this. What we mean is that they're potentiating. So as each being goes through this process, third dimension, fifth dimension, it is increasing potentiation, it's increasing expansion. It's a utilizing of the infinite potential of the one. It's becoming further realized as the infinite being, until eventually what will occur is that each being from the humanity race, which are fifth dimensional, will reach a point where they have used up all of the potential of the fifth dimension. There is no more potential to expand into in this ongoing continuation of realization that you are the infinite being, that you are an individuation of the one. And so then again it will be time for humanity to transition to the next dimensional state. This is, in the terms of years, this is very, very far away. Very, very far away. However, the point we are making is that the veil, the difference between those that are in the afterlife and those that are in the physical field living a life, the difference, the demarcation, the difference in the state is becoming less and less and less, until eventually, by the end of the fifth dimension, it will be a choice whether to have a physical body or not. So you will be able to be in the physical field, but as a purely energetic being, as an orb of energy. And this form of self will be basically the same form of self you are in the highest self state. You will be the highest self. And so you will literally be an afterlife being in the physical experience. And so there will be communication between those that still have a physical body and those that no longer have a physical body. There will be the possibility to communicate and to be in proximity with each other and have full awareness of each other, just as it is now when you're in a room full of people. So the veil eventually will be completely gone, and there will be no separation between the physical, those beings that choose to be physical, and those beings that are energetic, other than choice. It will just be a choice. It will be a choice to be in a physical body, or a choice to be energetic. And the biological process through which you incarnate now, so the incarnation cycle for a human being requires that there is this biological coupling between the masculine and the feminine, or the male and female gender, such that they produce a child, and then the energetic, the higher self, will incarnate, will download itself into this new biological organism so that it can now integrate into physicality. However, by the end of this fifth dimensional spectrum, humanity will no longer be needing this biological mechanism. So it will just be a choice to transition from purely energetic state into the physical world whenever wanted. So it will no longer be a necessity to have this biological process, because you will be able to incarnate or enter into the physical realm and transition back and forth. There will be no need for birth and death. It literally will be a possibility to transition from the physical to the non-physical, from the non-physical to the physical, backwards and forwards, at will. And so the life and afterlife will be mingled. There will be no separation, there will just be volition, there will only be choice. So, the meaning of all this, which we are describing now, is that the world of the living and the world of the deceased will eventually become the one world. It will become the one field that is completely integrated. And so you will be communicating with those that are deceased, although it will no longer be seen as they are deceased, but instead it will be seen as they are just in a different energetic form. That energetic form will be through choice. When you incarnate into your physical body, that is by choice. Nobody is here in the physical plane without choosing to be so. And nobody is born into a set of life circumstances that they didn't choose. So if somebody was born into a body which is disabled in some way, although from the perspective of limitation as a 3D being, it seems tragic and unfortunate that they have been born into a body which is not able. However, from the higher self perspective, from this true essence of who they are before they're born into the body, they have chosen that body. They chose that condition to be born into, because that contains the potential for the experiences they require to further awaken into the realization that they are the higher self having physical experience, that they are the one having physical experience, such that this know thyself purpose can be fulfilled. The purpose of the one, experiencing itself, knowing itself through experience, can be fulfilled. So you can see from what we have described so far that the physical and non-physical, the world of the living and the world of the dead, or the afterlife, is not impermeable. It's not a barrier which cannot be breached, and in the future it will be just an open community in both states, coinciding, coexisting by choice. So this field can be transitioned now. It can be not transition as in you can die and transition, yes, this is true, but what we mean is it can be seen through. It is possible to peer through the veil now and to make contact with beings that you've known which are now deceased. This process is going to be most effective when you yourself are able to be authentic, because the communication that you receive when you make this connection, and if you desire to make the connection will always be made. If you request that I wish to speak with somebody who no longer is living, they will be available to communicate with you. Some aspect of them will come to you when you call in this way. However, for you to perceive that is the challenge. For you to recognize within the inner field, within the sensations that you're receiving internally, to discern what of that is from them is the challenge. Making the connection, for them to come to you when you call them, this is the easy part. The difficult part is for you to discern what their message is, to recognize the connection and see that they are there. And this is going to be most easily achieved when you have a high level of authenticity. And when we say this, the meaning is that you are able to be a spontaneous emanation as presence of your higher self. So you are allowing the feed of the higher self to, when it downloads, when it real-time streams into the body, you're channeling yourself, because that's what you're doing. You're channeling yourself at all times, because you are not the body, you are the higher self, and the body is being manifested from the higher self. The life you live is being manifested from the higher self. It is the dream of physicality. You are dreaming your life, and you are dreaming the body. It is all the one dream. So therefore, you are the body and you are the life, because it is all the one dream. And so when you are downloading yourself into this manifestation of the dream of the higher self, your purpose, the reason that you are having these experiences, is that you wish to be awakened as the higher self in the physical experience. So you become the higher self physicalized. This is the awakened master. And which is in the more expanded definition, because you are the one. It is the one experiencing itself. It is the one awakened as the infinite love of itself in the physical experience. This is your purpose. And the further along you are through this process, the more you are authentic, the more you're able, through your authenticity, to discern what internally is you and what is not. So if you are in a state of inauthenticity, where you don't know yourself very well, where you have many layers of belief which are occluding the true essence of who you are, then it's going to be more of a challenge for you to discern what internally is you and is not you, because you are identifying a lot with a misconceptualization of self. You have many layers of belief about who you are based on the experiences of the past, which are not you. So when you attempt to speak with the deceased, and they are sending you this information, this input, which is not you, although yes, it is you, because there is only one thing, but from this individualized perspective, it is not you. But in there also, in your internality, is much misconceptualization of self. There is much identification with the mind, the body, the personality. And so already there is much in there which isn't you, which is erroneous belief of self. And so when you have this input from something else which is also isn't you, there is a blending, there is a mixing, there is a dilution. And so it becomes difficult to discern what is you and what is not. And so the message, in a way, can be lost. But it is there. The input is there. It is offering to you to have this connection, to have this realization. Because the higher self being which you are attempting to channel, they are fully integrated into their realization that they are the one. And through this integration, they realize that their purpose is the one's purpose, which is to know thyself, for you to be the highest self realized in the physical experience, to you to be the ascended master, to be the highest self energetic, the infinite being, having a physical experience, fully awakened to that's who you are, such that the one is having a physical experience of itself. The one is awakened through you and having an experience of itself. And so these highest self beings which you wish to, these beings that are in their highest self state, that are in their afterlife state, that you wish to communicate with, they understand, because they're fully integrated and awakened to this realization. This is the process. This is the mechanism. This is the purpose, shall we say, of existing, to awaken. Then they know that when they communicate with you, they will be fulfilling this purpose, because through their connection with you, they will further awaken you. They will help you to access new truths. They will help you to become more identified and expanded into the understanding that you are the highest self, that you are the energetic individuation of the love of the one. And so this is why, almost invariably, when you call them, they will come to you. And it is still their choice. It is by their choice that they will come to you. But nearly always they will choose to come to you because they will see it as an opportunity to expand the one, for the one to become more awakened, because they, in this energetic state, are very integrated into the identity that they are the one. We make this point because if you attempt to make a connection with the afterlife, if you ever have the feeling and you begin to have the thoughts of doubt that it's not happening, they're not there, they're not coming to me, they're not interested, this isn't the case. It's very unlikely that this is the case. They still have their choice. It is still by their volition they will come to you or not. but in most cases they will come to you for this reason, because they wish to further the awakening of the one, which they see themselves as. They are awakened into this realization, and knowing that if they come to you, and if they speak with you, and they share the wisdom of the higher self plane with you, that it will facilitate your awakening, which will be a contribution to the divine purpose. Also, if you decide to try this, then we recommend that you give it some time. There will be a process of calibration, of harmonization. So when you sit down and you try to connect with somebody who is no longer living, be at peace, spend some moments just with yourself, allowing yourself to descend into a peaceful state. By descending into a peaceful state, you are raising your vibration. You're becoming less dense, less physicalized, more energetic, and this is going to shift you along this spectrum so that you are less differentiated from those you wish to contact. By going through this process of relaxation, meditation, sitting peacefully, quietly, descending into a state of mind stillness, no thought, where you have the sensation that you are present, but you are not having an internal dialogue, so that you are in a state of awareness of the higher self in the physical experience. Then this is going to shift you along the spectrum towards the energetic state they are in, and they will increase the density of their state. So they will move towards you also, so that you can meet in the middle, so to speak, and have a greater success at making this connection. And then once you have come into this peaceful state, and then you decide to make contact, when you make contact, when you, with the recognition, I am making contact now, calling to the person that you wish to have the communication with, this person that you've known from the past, or any person that exists, any person that is in the afterlife, whether they lived in your life or whether they lived 1,000 years ago, it is still possible to connect with an aspect of these beings because they continue to exist. Even if they are having incarnation right now in this perspective of the moment of now, they can still, from a higher self perspective, communicate with you. So if they have incarnated again as a different being than the one you wish to have communication with, their higher self perspective still has that memory, that information field, access to those Akashic records, where they can communicate to you as that identity that existed maybe 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. And even though at this very moment they are having other incarnations in this moment of now, this perspective of now. So there is a lot of flexibility. It's very dynamic. There is a high level of possibility. So much can happen and is happening all at the same time. So be very open. Use your imagination when you do this process if you wish to challenge yourself. And so when you have made this connection, allow yourself to harmonize. So it may require for you to speak for a while, and maybe when you first begin speaking, you maybe have the mentality that I'm just making this up, I'm not connected to anyone, this is ridiculous, this is stupid. But persist, continue, because the more that you speak with the intention of making this connection, holding in your mind's eye this imagery of this person that you wish to connect with, what will happen is you will start to harmonize. So in the beginning there will be a relationship between you and them which is not synchronized. But then as you continue to speak, eventually there will be a synchronization and a harmonization, and then you'll be able to meld together as this single being. Because this is what will occur. You will become the single being, so you will form a group consciousness with them. And there will be a third being. It will be not just you and them, but together you will form a third being. And this third being will be the combination of you and them, because it has to happen this way. Because as they are going to pass through you, there is this integration, there is this coming together, so there is this formation. So when they come through you, it may be their input, but it is spoken through you. So you see, you have become a combined being. You have become a group being. And so from your perspective, because in this group being you are in there, you are part of this group being. So even though it may be input, it may be information coming from them, because you are the one who is the vehicle, you are the one who is the channel, then in this identity that is bringing forth this information, you are in there as well. So the tendency may be to go, hang on a sec, this is just me speaking. This is just coming out of me. This is nonsense. So let go of this expectation that when it occurs, that for the moments when they are speaking and they are offering information, that you are completely them, that you are just them and not you anymore, that you disappear from the equation and it is just them. Because this is not how it occurs. Because you are forming a group identity, you're becoming a third being. You and them are forming the third being. Just as we now, as we channel through Murray, this conduit you see in front of us, we have formed a group being with him. And he is aware that this is the process, and so prior to each channel session, we come together and then by agreement we acknowledge the group being. And he is in there with us. So from his perspective, it is him, it is his experience. And yet from our perspective, it is our experience. This is how it works. So play around with this, have fun with this, and just understand that when you have this desire to make this connection and you reach out to a particular person that exists in the human field, that nearly always they will come to you and they will offer themselves as a connection such that you can bring forth their input and verbalize it or think it or write it into the physical experience. Nearly always they will be there. So the challenge for you will to be have the authenticity to discern that information from the internal information that is already there. Discern it from the internal field. So work on your authenticity. Work on becoming a spontaneous emanation of self. Work on discovering who you are to become more realized of the higher self. Become a student of your own awakening. This is a wonderful spin-off, or it is a wonderful byproduct of wanting to be able to channel these beings, channel the deceased, or channel any being which exists now or in the past. Because nothing ends. All beings continue to exist, yet just transition from one state to another. Your purpose is to know thyself, because that is the divine purpose. And as you become increasingly realized of the higher self in the physical experience, you're becoming increasingly realized of the one in the physical experience. And the one is God. And so, in a very real sense, you become more God-like. So we don't mean godly, as in you become more religious or more pious. We don't mean it in this way. What we mean is that you will have more of the qualities of a God, which means that you will be able to do things which others yet cannot. But of course, inevitably, all humans will be able to do these things that we are talking about now. But you will be moving, you will be leading the pack, you will be on the front of the wave, which is moving towards this more energetic, less physically dense state, which means that you are moving towards a greater realization of the higher self, greater realization of your individuation of the One. So you'll be moving towards being awakened as God in the physical experience, as the One in the physical experience. So you will literally be becoming more godlike and being able to channel, to connect with deceased beings, to have access to high wisdom, to be unusually creative, to be unusually amicable, likeable, to be able to blend into any moment, to know exactly what guidance or information that you can give to another person which is pertinent to them right now for them to further awaken and solve the problems of their life. All of these things will become greater capacities within self. So if you have this interest where you would like to speak with the deceased, then understand that this is just one of the effects of becoming a more awakened being. And being a more awakened being means being more authentic. So begin this journey of discovering the self. And not only will be able to speak freely with the deceased, but you'll be able to do so much more as well, because you will be less of the finite human and more of the infinite God. So this is a fun topic, and this is something to play around with, and this is exciting, but who knows, perhaps you will speak with us, because we are here. We are not exclusive to Murray. If you wish to speak to us, then you can speak to us also. There is so much opportunity. There are so many like us who are willing to connect with you, to share with you the information that you require, such that they can, through this mechanism, facilitate the divine purpose. So play around with this, have fun, expand yourself, be a free being, be less constricted by the belief in limitation, that things like this are silly, and that a real sensible person doesn't do these things. That is a belief in your density. It is an identification with this aspect of you which is most dead, which is least real. The turning the other way and expanding into new possibilities and new desires for experiencing life in a new way, to be experimental. This is moving towards your godlike nature. So have fun, play around. It doesn't matter if it feels like a success or not. It is just all part of the magic of being in the stage of physicality and going through this wonderful process of experiencing all experiences such that you can awaken to the realization that you are the highest self in the physical experience, and as such the One is fulfilling its purpose and becoming knowing of itself through experience. Thank you, we love you, and we are excited that you are thinking in this way and on the border, on the beginnings of making these choices. Go all the way. Thank you.